Okay. All right. I am live now. Welcome to the Sunday Brunch Bunch with your host, Calvinwazoo, also known as Richard. And the year for the Brunch Bunch today is 1995. I don't have a whole lot. Um, Hello, Jason. Good to see you. I don't have a lot of examples, but perhaps some people will be joining us who will have more. But it's kind of interesting. I was looking up some lists of like the best music of 1995. Oh, great! That'll be cool. Yes, in fact, most of my examples are dance club music that I picked up at the time. Nothing really, um, nothing really, intense. At that time in '95, I was living in central Michigan, so to get to a club, a good club. Hello, Jorgen. Good to see you. For me to get to a good club, I needed to drive at least 90 minutes. That would be to get, I was in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. So that would be to go to a club known as Paradise in Lansing. It was in downtown Lansing. And they had some very good dance music, and that's was my primary, exposure. There were a few times I would make it to Grand Rapids, and there was a club there called Diversions, which also, in my view, played a lot of really good music. I didn't get to Chicago. I wasn't living in Chicago, and I didn't get to Chicago very often. But of course, every time I did, the music that I was hearing, really began to expand what I was listening to in terms of club music and dance music. And I initially was, I guess, sometimes I have a difficult time knowing the difference between, techno and trance but eventually I figured things out. And for the most part, I was a house music fan, followed mostly then probably by um, trance, and there were some techno that I liked, but that was kind of I had to be kind of like in the right uh, place and time, I think, for the techno. But I started just collecting a lot of hey Ed, I just started collecting a lot of different stuff, and gradually it wasn't until the late '90s and getting into the 2000s when I was getting to Chicago a lot more frequently, and I started finding dance mix CDs at a few stores there in Chicago, and some really, really great dance mixes. And Chicago became more of a regular thing, but still, that was a big trip to go to Chicago. It wasn't something from even when it was easier, when I moved to the west side of Michigan and I was living in Holland, Michigan. Then Chicago was 2.5, 3 hours away. But and there were times that I would go and hit the clubs and come back the same night. But usually it was book a hotel room because there was no telling when I was going to be getting out of the club. It might be before the club closed. It might be after the club closed, and then I would go to an after hours bar. So sometimes it was, I needed to find a hotel room. So I would book a hotel. And of course, Chicago hotels, or even the dives. I mean, I remember staying at a hostel. There's this hostel that is in Lincoln Park that even at this time, late 90s and early 2000s, it was still $80 a night. And you got a room that was like a dorm room. I think the building might have been an old college dorm building. So you had this, and then if you paid for a room, if it was a private room, okay, a private room, there was enough room for a bed, and then there was, chances are you had a toilet and a sink, but you had to go down the hall for the communal shower. Um, so if there was a group of us that were going, then we would get a hotel. But even then, we often stayed in one of the suburbs because we could get a hotel room for less than $200 a night. But in the city, that wasn't going to happen really, unless you'd be driving just as far. So and being a shithole neighborhood, so might as well go up to Glenview or someplace like that. And there were a couple of times stayed all the way up, and I think it's Deerfield, where 90 and 94 come back together. I think that's no, it's where 90, 94, and then 294 come together. So that's way up there. So it'd be like a long ass drive, to get down to the clubs we were going to, which were at the time, most of them are still there. There was Sidetracks. There is Sidetracks. There is Roscoe's, but there was also the Manhole. There was also, let's see, Spin, no longer there. Berlin is still there. And then there were, a few others that were around at the time, didn't really go to them. And then there was Charlie's, which was a country western bar up until all the other bars closed. And then that turned into a dance house club until 4:30 in the morning. So that was fun from time to time. But yeah, I'm looking at like some of the music from 1995. I'm looking at according to this website, Popular Culture or Pop Culture Madness, 1995's Dance Top 10 list. All right, there was Cotton Eye Joe by Rednecks, and I remember that. Get Ready for This by Two Unlimited. I remember Two Unlimited, but I don't remember that song. Boom, 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 Out There Brothers, Fat Boy, Maximilian, Tootsie Roll, 69 Boys, Bombastic, Shaggy. These I don't remember. Come and Get Your Love, Real McCoy. I remember them. Baby, Baby, Corona. That's not, I remember Corona, but not Baby, Baby. Girls Town by Super Rat. Sexual Healing by Maximilian. Again, I don't remember these. Remember these. So anyway, that was kind of what was going on at that time. There was some other interesting stuff that was going on in terms of rock music, but this is like, we're kind of getting into this period that's sort of post the grunge explosion, and where hair metal died of many, many, many self-inflicted wounds. We were talking about this recently in a Gunkles video, which has been posted But yeah, there was some self-inflicted wounds there from that hair metal did to themselves. But then, after Kurt Cobain died, there was this, and not that he was necessarily holding the entire genre of grunge together, but there was this reemergence of um, very uninspiring bro rock kind of thing that was going on, that was very commercial, which was, again, it was the resurgence and reemergence in many ways of the thing that grunge and the post-punk movement were rebelling about. Yeah, I same thing here, Chris. I don't have a whole lot either, but so my interest at this time was more into the club music, and so it's when I began collecting a lot of different compilations, and when I would go to the clubs and I would hear different songs, then I would didn't have Shazam at that time, but I would do my best to try and remember kind of the song that I heard that I liked. And then a lot of times it was hit or miss when I would go to buy a CD. And hence I ended up buying mostly compilations and mixes of dance music at the time, because I couldn't remember or didn't know the name of the song or the artist. I remembered how it went. Um, and then sometimes I would be able to ask the DJ. There used to be Roscoe's for a while. The DJ was on the main. Well, sometimes the DJ was on the main floor, so you could go up to them and talk to them. Other times they were like up in a loft, so you couldn't necessarily reach them. But other clubs, the DJ was fairly accessible, because they would take recommendations, and so I could go up to them and say, "Hey, what was that you just played?" And then I would, of course, a club, don't have something to write it down or whatever, but I would try and remember it, and then I would, look it up later. So, but yeah, it's see, it was a lean year for me in terms of, buying records, buying. Well, I was at that time I wasn't buying vinyl. I had pretty much converted my collection from vinyl to CDs, and a lot of the CDs that I had at that time I no longer have, either because I traded them in again, something that I really liked in 95 or 96 or something like that. Um, After a while, a lot of the music didn't hold up. It didn't age well, not like other periods where music really held up over the years in spite of whatever era that it came from. So, in fact, when it comes to vinyl, I have three records, and then I've got maybe a half dozen CDs that are, again, mostly club music. And Jorgen, I know that one of them is. I'm hoping you're going to have this one, so I will not show it right away if you come up and join us, because I'm pretty sure that it's one that you have, and I don't want to still steal it from you. But it's definitely one that, not like last time when I stole one from you and showed it before you did. So, but there's the link if y'all want to join us up here and talk about the year 1995. I mean, some of the best albums too that were listed by the You Discover Music of the now Fugazi and I guess Garbage had their debut in 1995. Washing Machine by Sonic Youth was pretty good. Um, and then there was Moby, but some of these others, I mean, yeah, The Ghost of Tom Joad was a pretty good Springsteen album, but if that's like one of the best, I don't know. Green Day, Insomniac, I don't have any Green Day, but I'm just looking at some of these records that were considered to be among the essential albums of 1995. I'm finding them to be, I don't know, just I guess it reveals in many ways the weakness of the year. They're okay albums, but not necessarily that great. Hey, Chris, how are you doing today?
Hey, how you doing?
I
I've got like 2 vinyl records and maybe 8 to 10 CDs. I even pulled a couple 7 inches just to pull some stuff.
No, that's fine. That's cool. In fact, we paid an homage in our recent, which got posted today from the Gunkles, that we did an homage for the channel As It Should Be, and how they go through each year, and then they pick their favorite singles, and they're focused completely on singles, and that's perfectly fine because I know I've got a couple singles that were released in 95, but the album that they're from was like 1994. And then, of course, sometimes the artist will release a single leading up to the release of an album. The singles will come out before the album does. So, that's perfectly fine and all okay. Hello, Jorgen.
Good
Jorgen,
morning.
I mean, no, you gotta forget the hard J. I don't need that.
Good evening.
Yeah, good evening to you there. I can see it's twilight there in Sweden, perhaps.
Let's just say that don't judge my room to what kind of how it looks like outside. But
yeah.
yes,
Oh no, I get that because I have to pull like today. It's a beautiful, bright, cloudless, sunny day. So I have to close the blind so I don't get all this light reflecting on me.
It's irritating because I have this light here,
Yeah,
and I have this light here, and I have a lamp backside, and still it looks like I'm sitting in the middle of the night.
that's our devices sometimes just don't have the greatest apertures for.
Though the clock here is only 6 o'clock in the evening here only.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, and we're in the end of October, so and you're definitely higher latitude than I am here in Chicago. So yeah, the days are quickly getting shorter up there.
Yeah, it's getting dark. All of a sudden it started to get dark here around 5 o'clock.
Yes, it's now. I still get when I get up in the morning. The sun has risen, but it's only just risen, and I'm going to be coming into that time of year when I get up and it's still dark outside. And then it'll be dark by the time it's 6 o'clock. And I'm going to be like, oh, Jesus, and then I start thinking when it's 8 o'clock, it must be really late because it's been dark for a while. And then I look at the clock and it's like, it's only 8 o'clock. And I'm like, oh man. Anyway. So how let's get started here, and even though we all have probably much less material to
are you sure that we all haven't shown our stuff until Jason comes up, or even Stunty?
Oh well, right. Jason as well. Jason, I know he's pulling some stuff. I haven't seen a message from Stunty as of yet, so. Although, recently I was watching one of his streams, and again, I was writing down names of of music, that he was spinning,
He might be sharing his time also with James, that also has stream at the same time.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of people doing a lot of streams, but we can. I'm sure. I don't think. I might have a. I'm not going to show anything that Jason, is going to show his material. He's going to have very deep examples of some house music and techno from 1995 that I'm probably have heard, but I don't have it in physical format. So I think we're safe to get started here. And when Jason has got his stuff ready, he'll if the comments go, I'll put the stream link back up. So
I have a lot lesser albums, yes, but I still have a pretty okay stack. 95 95 was the year when I didn't buy that much new stuff because I was at a school at the time in the autumn, and I studied near a library that rented out that you could borrow CDs from. So I made a whole lot of cassette copies.
I did the same thing because I have a ton of burned CDs that I did because I would go to the library and check out a CD, and if I liked it, then I burned a copy of it. And then eventually, when I got back into vinyl collecting, then what I would do is I would go through those CDs and, pick my favorite ones and make a list in my phone so that if I happened to see a vinyl copy of it, then I would buy one. But yeah, there was a lot of public libraries that where I could do that. And
I also I had a friend, girl who was a friend of mine, and she this year taught me to like indie Britpop, Oasis and so on, and synth pop of the more deeper things than just the more commercial 1D erasure and so on. And she copied a whole bunch of cassettes to me. So a whole lot of stuff also is copied from her when it comes to albums. So I didn't buy all that much. Overall of these are bought afterwards.
Well, you remember those? Do I have one close by that I can show that? It doesn't look like I do, but
hold on.
I like these big, huge books that you could slide CDs into.
I hear my telephone. 1 moment.
Oh, okay. I definitely had one of those where all the burned CDs. It was like a photo album, but you slid CDs, into it. I've got 3 of those. Of course, some of them are DVDs as opposed to music CDs.
I have one sitting in my car with burned CDs in it.
Well, that was the other thing too. At that time, car stereos. I mean, that's why for a while I was still making cassettes of stuff because that's what I had in my car was a cassette player. I had a portable CD player.
Yeah.
But in a car, you hit a little bump and then boom, you gotta.
Did you ever have the thing with the adapter so you could use your CD Walkman in the cassette deck? I had one of those.
I did not. I think I got the portable CD player. I don't think I really ever got a portable cassette player.
Yeah, there was the car ready version of the Sony Discman where you had the thing that you plugged in, and then there was a thing that looked like a cassette that you plugged into your cassette deck.
No, did not have that.
So,
and then when they finally started putting in the dash, I mean, of course, I didn't buy. When I had a car, I drove it into the dirt, before I would get a new car. So it was quite a while before I got a vehicle that had a CD in the dash CD player.
Yeah, I realize probably the next time I get a car, there probably won't be a CD player in it.
Yeah. Oh, hey, good morning. Guten Tag. Good morning.
Guten Tag, yes.
Welcome to the show. And for
Yeah.
1995, the music of
I'm pretty sure I have nothing that Jorgen or Jason or Stunty will show. I'm pretty confident.
Okay. Yeah, I think, well, one I don't know if if Stunty comes by, if he'll show it, but I think it's going to be one that might impress him. Uh, so must be a very long and important phone call that Jorgen's got going on. Was there, before we start showing uh, individual recordings, I know that I had mentioned at the start that this was about the time I was really starting to collect house and dance and trance music. That was kind of my focus pretty much into from the mid 90s into the early 2000s. Was there a particular area of music for you that you were mostly focused on?
I mean, throughout like the late '80s, early '90s, as I've discussed before, I was pretty much into what was deemed alternative rock. That grunge that was starting to lose steam a little bit in the 19 by the mid '90s. I actually kind of got into, especially when I was living in Colorado. This was probably the period of my life where I was most into like the jam band scene, and
Okay,
and
yeah,
I had a phase with that. The year, so 1995. Okay, yeah, it was a year before I started graduate school in 1996, and actually, my music purchasing really dropped off for 1996 until sometime in the 2000s. So this is just before that, but even then it was start drifting off, and there's a few 95 CDs that I didn't pull off the shelf because they're things that I don't really like that much anymore.
yeah. Yeah, that was something I was talking about earlier. There was at the time some very good music but it didn't age well, and then I just stopped listening to it. Um, so are you
Let
ready
me,
to get
let me
started,
also,
Jorgen?
let me also fill in that you talked about Two Unlimited. Get ready for this, and that was one of their first songs from 91, 92. So you were pretty late than us here in Europe. We had that seed single already back then, and from what I understand, Two Unlimited had developed their Eurodance pretty much since then. So I don't understand why. Because if you listen to No Limit, for instance, that was an even bigger hit. That one was sounded a whole lot more groovier than Get Ready for It.
Yeah, the Eurodance thing, I mean, I was becoming aware of it in the late 90s, but it was more of an exotic kind of thing, I think, at least in the area where I was in the US. It was so, yeah, it's kind of hard. Um, Again, it wasn't until I was going to Chicago with greater frequency that I saw the CDs, and heard the music in the clubs and the hinterlands, that I was going to in Michigan. Not a whole lot of Eurodance, although um, there was. Then this would be a little bit later. Was when 98, I think it was when I got turned on to Underworld, and so some more of that.
Born Slippy.
Was that?
Born Slippy.
Yeah, yeah, and I was a huge fan. I mean, I still got a bunch of single CDs of Underworld and the different mixes from those two albums. Which ones were they? from Buku Fish and Second Toughest in the Infants. Those particular ones. Last week, they had they released in '94. That was the year they released Dub No Bass with My Head, something like that. And I've been looking for that one, and I can't. That's a tough one to find.
You mean, aren't you talking about the bombs with these bombs giving up my head? Isn't that you mean? Bucket heads with the bombs.
Oh, okay. Don't recognize that. Don't recognize that.
They have sampled Chicago's street player.
Yeah, there was well, yeah, and there was some really good hip hop that was coming out, but I'm also in the camp with like Robert Fitton that either hip hop needed to be very aggressive, very political, or it needed to be mocking itself. Hip hop, any hip hop, and kind of in the middle. That was, yeah, that didn't really interest me. But the really strong stuff, yeah, Dub No Bass with My Head, man. That's the one that would have been 1994, and I'm looking for that on vinyl. I wouldn't mind picking it up on CD, but it's I don't see it very much. So, well, are we ready?
As last year, I also have a stack of Eurodance albums I would put together.
Well, that'd be cool, especially if you can which ones still hold up, and still sound good as we're looking at nearly 30 years later. Jesus, how time flies when you're not doing a damn thing. All right, well, let's get started. What do you got, Chris? Start us off.
Oh, I'm starting.
Sure, why not?
All right. Well, I guess I'll get I'll get the fish out of the way. So, as I was saying a couple of minutes ago, this would have been the point of my life where I was pretty big into Fish and similar sorts of bands. This is a 2 CD all live set that has probably most of their strongest tracks from probably the early part of their career. If you were going to come to me and said, I want to buy one Fish CD, or in this case, it's a double CD set and only one, I'd probably send you to this.
And it's called what?
It's called a live one.
A live one. You see that? I've been looking for something by Fish that
it's like the Dead. There's just tons and tons and tons of archival material that's out. If you're somebody who's like, okay, give me one and only one, this is probably the one to get.
And like with the Grateful Dead, with those live recordings, it's probably better to go with a CD because then there's less. If instead of having a 4 record, live recording that you got to get up and flip, or what you can, in my CD changer, I can put all the CDs in my changer and then I never have to get up and change anything.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Left Field Leftism. I don't know that one. So
yeah, I know. I think it's a 96, but I have the Train Spotting soundtrack, and I'm pretty sure there's a Left Field song on that. So
okay, all right. So Jorgen, how about you? What do you have?
1995, as I said, the year when I went to a school. Here in Sweden, we have a study form that calls People University. That isn't like university, but it is for pre-university. And I went there and studied media, and there I got introduced for real and learned to like Britpop. I learned 95 for real to like Eurodance. So it was a very developing year for me when it comes to music, and this is the period that I like very much because you had so many different kind of influences. It was not like you had one type of music; you had so many musical styles too. So it was a very interesting year. I'm starting with this one because I don't want to scare Stunty away in case he comes. Oasis was the story, Morning Glory. This is the album actually that led me into Oasis. Actually, it wasn't definitely maybe that led me into Oasis, but this is an album. When I heard this one, I realized that hey, this is really, really great British rock music. I never understood why it called Brit pop, and in my ears it was more rockier, but it was very, very great, relaxing British pop. And Roll With It, Wonderwall, of course, Don't Look Back in Anger. Some might say, I feel that this is a more straight rockier. Yeah, Janne, it is a great album. I feel like this is a little more straight rockier album than definitely maybe might be, though both are really great. But this one is a little more straight British rockier. So really, really great album.
That yeah, it is. It's definitely a good album, and there are some really good songs that held up. They're still, they're still good songs. They aren't so, they aren't so dated. Yes. What was now? What was the first hit again? You said off of it.
I think the first one was
Wonderwall.
no, that was not the. I think that was the third single.
Okay.
Some might say and Roll With, I think was Don't Look Back in Anger, I think was before that also.
Okay, all right.
Wonderwall, on the other hand, is a song that actually neither of the Gallagher brothers actually liked. So I don't think they actually performed it that much after this, and today they hardly talk about it.
Yes.
I think that's the only thing that they actually agree on today.
Yeah. The that is funny how with many artists that they'll have there'll be a song that just becomes a massive hit with their fans, but they don't really like it, and
I think it's sad because I think Wonderwall is really, really great. It's a great ballad, and also like Ed Topo said, in here in Europe there also were an easy listening version that was released. Mike Flowers Pops released an easy listening version of Wonderwall right after. It was one of the few times where the cover came pretty much after a hit. That was something that was more happening in the 60s and 70s. But it was also, I didn't like it back then. I learned to like Mike Flowers versions later on, but the original is far better in my opinion.
Yeah, all right, so yeah, I'm gonna because I only have like 3 or 4 vinyl copies, I'm saving them for much later. And so what I'm going to start off with here is this was a big club song for a long time in 95, and that is the Macarena. But there were a lot of versions, a lot of mixes of the Macarena that were out there. But this was the one that they played in most of the clubs, the Bayside Boys mix, and it's good. I mean, it's silly song, and I guess the guys at Los Del Rio were a bunch of they were much older, at the time that they did. I don't know the whole story on the songs or on the origin of the song, but yeah, I knew the moves. Everybody knew the moves. Everybody got on the dance floor to do the Macarena.
You were pretty early.
Was
You
that?
you were very early, because here it was a summer hit in '96.
Okay. Well, yeah, this is yeah, as I said, this was the mix to get for sure. It's got there's the Bayside. This CD only has 2 tracks. It's got the Bayside Boys mix and then the Can You Feel It radio edit. So, but yeah, this was it. If you wanted to get the Macarena, this was the one to get.
I'm going to admit that back in '96, I hated that song so much. I turned it off every time. It was so cheesy. I don't hate it today. I don't like it either. I have some kind of a love-hate feeling for it. It is a nice groove, but it's so cheesy. But I don't care.
There were a couple mixes that were cheesy, that they were awful.
The fun thing about Macarena is that not that much better. but the fun thing about Macarena is back then in 1996, when it came here in Sweden, I hardly saw anyone dancing Macarena here. They loved it, but I hardly saw anyone dancing Macarena. Afterwards, I seen people dancing Macarena on pure nostalgia for some reason. It was even so when I was looking at some people that graduated from high school. Then here in Sweden, they have a tradition where they going on a truck around the city and cheering and playing music and shouting, and then they played Macarena, and they know the dance moves. This was around only 5 years ago, maybe, and then I felt old. And I thought to myself, hey, you weren't half born when this song was a popular hit in Sweden. Then I felt old.
Well, you see, now I was approaching 40 years old, at this time, when I was going to the dance clubs. But I had a very, very youthful appearance. So even though I was near 40 years old, I looked like I was 18. So that didn't last long. But anyway, Chris, what do you have for us?
Well, I Macarena was pretty much, I pretty much agreed with Jorgen. I wasn't into it at the time, and I really hadn't thought about it again until a couple of minutes ago.
See what you did, Richard? You made him remember bad thoughts by showing that.
Since Jorgen showed Oasis, I'm going to go ahead and stay with that theme. I'm going to show Elastica. So this is, I believe it's their debut album. It's self-titled. I actually like this better than either the Oasis record or the Blur record from that year. Connection, Car Song, Stutter. I mean, obviously this band pretty much fell apart after this, but this is a pretty good album.
Elastica is, yeah, totally unfamiliar.
I never got into Elastica, actually. That was one of the few bands in a genre that I never understood.
A genre? What genre would you call it?
I would assume that since he connected it to Oasis, I would assume that also is a part of the Britpop.
I mean, yeah. So.
All right.
I thought they had fun, quick fun songs. So.
All right.
A little too scream yelled a little too much in my taste.
No.
Well, then, Jorgen, what have you got that's going to bring you out of this nasty memory that I evoked?
Not nasty memories. Elastica wasn't a big thing here in Sweden, so I heard them in radio once or twice. Not much other than that.
I think he meant the Macarena.
Yeah, I'm talking about what I did with the Macarena.
I'm going to with something that I discovered some years later on, not that much back then, but this is a British band led by singer Sarah Blackwood. You can call it they're doing some kind of an indie pop with hints of Britpop, dream pop, and synth music. And I'm talking about a band called Dubstar from Britain. This is a really, really great band that lies, you can almost in the same genre as Saint Etienne or stuff like that. Stars and Anywhere are two of the big hits they had here. They had an album in '97 also that was great, and they had a hit with Not So Manic Now. But they never became that big in Sweden, but they were pretty big in UK. And this is a really relaxing pop album. And she has a really relaxing voice, Sarah Blackwood. And I also recommend the songs that they released this year, like a song called I Can See You Outside. It's really, really good. So Dubstar, This Is Disgraceful is the title of the album.
Yeah, another band I have no clue about. And then you mentioned Saint Etienne. When you said that, I thought of the French wine appellation. So
okay, I thought you were going to say the French football team.
Yeah, so I don't know about them either.
But Saint Etienne is a band also in very, very relaxing British pop style with the singer Sarah Cracknell, and they are also really, really great.
Like Ecstasy or
even more relaxing, more.
Oh, okay, interesting. Oh. All right. Well, I'm going to amp things up then. Going from relaxing back to the dance floor. This was a big hit in the clubs in '95. That they played a lot, and so I picked it up, and that is Move It to the Rhythm, Technotronic. So again, this is got 5 different mixes on here. The album version, and then the MCT edit, the club edit, and then the 12-inch mix and the massive remix. The 12-inch mix is like 8 minutes long. Technotronic was a very, very popular music that they played in the Michigan dance clubs that I was going to at that time. So when we were in the middle between Detroit and Chicago, so we were getting, some of the good house music that was going in from both of those, cities. I pulled this out. I haven't listened to it probably since. It's probably been 20 years since I've listened to it. And I'm kind of hesitant to listen to it because I don't know if it's aged well. And I'm kind of afraid that if I listen to it, it's going to, the luster is going to be gone. So
Technotronic is a Belgian DJ originally. And at least here in Europe, they had their peak in 1989-90 with hits like Pump Up the Jam and Get Up Before the Night is Over.
Yeah, Pump Up the Jam, I remember.
That song was here in Europe when that song came, Technotronic was seen as a very dated band that never reached up to the limit that Pump Up the Jam reached back in '89.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, I never liked Pump Up the Jam, so I thought that song was actually a bit better.
What's up, guys?
Yeah, I do remember that. Hey, Jason, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Happy
Sunday.
Yeah, thanks for joining us as we're making it through this. At least for most of us up here, a very scant year, or skint year for music.
I picked out a few.
Yeah, well, good. That'll keep us going. All right. Well, then go around here, Chris. What do you have for us?
Okay, well, let's go ahead and get Radiohead out of the way. We got Radiohead, the Bends. You've got like Fake Plastic Trees, My Iron Lung. My favorite song is Street Spirit Fade Out, which is just a very intense and haunting song. It's the final track on this record. I know Tom York doesn't really like singing it because it's such the lyrics are so sort of draining emotionally. So and I've only seen Radiohead live once. I saw them, I believe it was 2011 or 2012 at a festival. It was after King of Limbs came out, which is not one of my favorite Radiohead records, and they almost entirely played that material and almost nothing from like this era Radiohead.
That's interesting because Radiohead's still remains to me a band I just have not been able to connect with. I just
Same with me.
Yeah, I've listened. I've borrowed records from my friends who have them. I've listened to them online, and I don't know. It's just but I'm not giving up necessarily.
Let's just say that
Trying to. I just may not be, but maybe it's going to be one of those bands I never get. I did finally get the connection with My Bloody Valentine and recognizing, like you had said before, Chris, that I got to listen to it really, really loud. And I think the connection that that got me into that direction was God. I remember the name of the record, but I can't. And I just bought the record. Souvlaki.
Was it Slow Dive?
Slow Dive.
Yeah.
Yeah, Slow Dive. That was because I like Slow Dive. And when I got Souvlaki and was listening to it, then I started to, things started to make sense a little bit about My Bloody Valentine.
I have Souvlaki. I think I forgot to show it. I think it's either a 93 or a 94 album. I don't remember.
Yeah, it's earlier. And I only just recently got a copy of it. So there was a reissue in the last few years, I think. So because it's one of those records that has been sort of had a cult following for so long. So OGs are hard to come by.
I'm going to confess when it comes to Radiohead that there's only one song that really has stuck to me that I really remember, and that is that Karma Police song. And I really have a hard time listening to that one because he sounds like he has taken a whole can of Valium before singing that one. When he sings, it sounds very, very tired and very, very sleepy when he sings.
That might be part of the issue too with me because it could be his vocal style.
If he can sound like he sounds awake, why would I be awake?
Yeah. And I never could tell the difference between Radiohead and Coldplay. So.
which band did you say?
I was just typing that. I was just going to type that. Yep.
Well, both
British thing. We don't get
both band makes me sleep, so I can't tell. I'm too sleepy to recognize both of them.
Yeah.
Well, very much on the melancholy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Heavy.
Yeah. All right. Well, then Jürgen, what do you have for us?
First, I'm going to make Zeb happy because he mentioned this one.
Oh,
York's
there
Post.
she is. Now I have an
now
actual
I'm
hate
spoiling.
on Bjork.
I guess I'm spoiling Jason. Sorry, it was meant to.
Oh, jeez.
Especially since I don't have. This is in the part that I haven't listened to yet, but I believe it's a good album. Sorry, it wasn't my part. You can show it still anyway. I'm going to show this one because I'm going into the jazz direction. This is a band that is called The Real Thing. It is a part Norwegian, part Swedish band. And I bought this album when I saw them live in 2012 and in the jazz club here. Actually, interesting thing is that they were selling albums by this band, and the guy that was standing and selling, they have a whole bunch of albums. They have the latest album, they have the other albums, they have this album. And as I'm a huge fan of live jazz, and I wanted something that was close to the thing that I was listening to, I actually bought this one before the latest album, and I still remember the eyes of the guy who sold. They looked pretty shocked that I didn't want the latest album. I want an old album. I said I like live jazz. I want to sound like they sounded now. The Real Thing is a band that plays with B3 Hammond. It is a band with drums, Hammond, alto sax, and guitar. Pretty much in Jimmy Smith genre, and I really liked it. When I heard this, I was knocked down because it was so groovy, really groovy Hammond organ jazz in Jimmy Smith style, and it was really, really great. So highly recommended. This is a live album from recorded in '95 and released in '95. And I see that Seb also agrees with me.
I tell you, when a band or an artist does some really cool music with a Hammond organ, it sounds great. It really sounds good. It's I like it. I like that kind of music. But there aren't a lot of musical artists that I think can pull it off really well. But when they do, it's good.
I'm a huge Hammond organ fan. I mean, if you take a normal blues rock style, I'm normally not into that. But put a Hammond organ in it, and it grooves even more, in my opinion, because Hammond organ has such an amazing sound. So I like Jimmy Smith, Joey DeFrancesco, rest in peace, recently passed away. So there are a lot of amazing Hammond jazz organists.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Especially in the jazz realm. All right, Jason. Now it's your turn here with bringing some vinyl into the mix here.
I got some house and techno. I actually have one record that is rock. I will show that later. And only a couple of these are albums. But I just wanted to say Jorgen, because I just saw a band called The Thing. There's a really cool jazz band called The Thing, which I don't think is the same at all, because they're really not funky and they're really like improv, noise, metal. I think they actually kind of build themselves as like heavy metal jazz from Norway and Sweden. But anyway, I'm going to start off. I'll show two right now. I'll start off with one of the biggest singles for us back in the 90s for DJs, and a really big band that you guys will know. It's Daft Punk. Yeah. So this is the first single that came out. Rollin' and Scratchin's on the B side, and Defunk is on the A side. That was a huge hit. They had that video, right, with the dog or whatever. It was a really funny French thing. And this is actually on a Scottish label on Soma Records. So that was their label. Then they got picked up by Virgin. The Homework album came out, I think the same year or the year after. I remember getting that on wax. But this is where it all began, this single. We didn't know who the hell Daft Punk was. I knew the Soma label actually more than Daft Punk. And but we immediately started playing this all the time. Both sides, actually. Rollin' and Scratchin' is a fun track, too. Kind of a jackin'.
I don't have any Daft Punk, and I know it's on my list, so to pick up.
Get the early stuff, man. I like the early stuff before they got way more disco and commercial. But
I'm going to admit that I didn't know that Daft Punk actually released albums back then. I thought they were later.
No, their first album was Homework, and it was very Chicago influence. And I'll show this one more here. This is another Chicago. This is a Chicago single. Gene Ferris, guy is a legend. He recently DJ'd in my town just a couple weeks ago. He's still going. He's got his own label as well. Ferris Wheel is the name of this single. But this Relief Records, Calvin, if you see any of this stuff, man, pick it up. From the 90s, this was the hot label. Kind of techno and house combined. Green Velvet, I don't know if you know Green Velvet, but he ran this label. And so this would have been like the influence on Daft Punk, by the way.
Oh, okay.
I have one Daft Punk album, actually, and it's the last album they released. And that is by far the best one, in my opinion.
The latest one? Discovery? No.
No, the last one.
I don't know what it's called.
That one with...
with Pharrell Williams or Happy.
Yeah,
or
yeah, Pharrell
guy?
Williams.
Yeah, I stopped listening to them really after the 90s, but
I thought that then when it comes to Around the World was an okay song, but other than that, it was good for the first 30 seconds. Then it became too repetitive. It sounded pretty much alike for 5 minutes, and then I got really bored. And that's why I
repetition
didn't
is the
like
name of the game. I mean, for Chicago House, think about the blues, right? I'm so down, I'm so down, I'm so down. I mean, it just comes right from the blues. You repeat.
Yeah, but at least the blues has more variated lyrics. They have at least singing.
Do they? Do they? Yeah. I mean, the blues is pretty minimal. Chris, back me up on this. You're a rock guy. The blues can be very repetitive, right?
The last album was much more melodic with much melodies and much more singing. And that's what I like that album, because it's a whole lot of other groove.
That's got a lot of melodies, too, in the samples that they use.
Well, I admit, I haven't heard their first albums, so I...
Yes, I agree. The blues is very formulaic. I mean, you're either playing 12-bar blues, or you're playing something else. It's and I'm finding, and that's not a bad thing. I'm finding as well with all this North African music that I'm listening to, especially the Tuareg music. It is also very formulaic. It's a style that everybody. Yeah. Everybody's playing the same style, the same rhythms, and then the different songs. I think in a video before I talked about how I really think the Northwest African music is where the blues really comes from, because during the slave trade, that's where most of the people came. What was that yelled up there?
Ram.
What was that?
Daft Punk's final album.
Okay. Okay. Alrighty. Well, now this is this I know I'm not going to play because I really don't think it does hold up. But this was, it was I guess you could call it a fun song that they played in the clubs at the time. But that is "Runaway" by the Real McCoy. It didn't hold up. It's
a cheese favorite.
It's whose?
It's a bit cheesy, yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah. But at the time, it was a fun song, and it was a good one to dance to. But yeah, it
is a great Eurodance track. But it is on the album that I showed last week. With the MCR and Real McCoy, that was called
right, because it was the album it came from was released in '94, and then these particular mixes were released in '95. But it was fun. I liked it then. It's in my collection, but it's not something I listen to much anymore, or at all, anymore. I got a couple other
for me.
I got a couple others that are like in that realm that I'll get to eventually. So, Chris, what do you have?
All right, let's show some Morphine. So this is Yes by Morphine. Honey White's probably the most well-known song on here. I have a couple of the Morphines on vinyl. This is not one I've gotten on vinyl yet. This is like a Ryko disc version that I bought at some point. So, of course, only a few years later, of course, we lost Mark Sandman. But yeah, I think we've talked about Morphine probably a couple weeks ago, I think.
Yeah.
Right? So.
Yeah, Cure for Pain was the album that I showed.
Yeah, Cure for Pain's one of the ones I have on vinyl. So this one I don't.
And Morphine, man, they had a really good, they had a great sound. They had a good, I don't want to call it shtick, but they had a style and that was really, really quite punchy and strong.
Yeah.
That one I'm not familiar with, but I know from
Morphine's probably one of those bands I probably like now more than I liked back in the day. I know in the chat, Zeb and I have been talking a little bit about Smashing Pumpkins, Melancholy, and the Infinite Sadness.
Yeah.
Smashing Pumpkins for me are kind of the opposite. Somebody I was really into in the 90s, but really don't care all that much for now. I was being a little bit snarky, and I said, like, Melancholy is like a double album. I said it would make a great EP because I was being kind of snarky. But I do think that record's a little bit bloated. So
I've heard that same opinion about that record, but also same thing when in the '90s, and I heard their music, I really liked it, and now it's kind of meh. Well, Jorgen, where are you going next?
I'm going actually to the 80s, but staying in the 95. How can I be that? Well, with a band that normally is from the 80s, but that released a band album 95 that was normally didn't sell all that much. And I remember it wasn't having good reviews at all. But when I heard it, it was surprisingly really good. And that is Tears for Fears album, Raúl and the Kings of Spain. And I'm going to admit, the hit single Raúl and the Kings of Spain is a good song, but the lyrics is totally, I don't understand one bit of it. But it is amazing. Melody-wise, it follows a little bit what they started with, the Seeds of Love. Those dreamy, very long and little experimental style, but with a more popular style than Seeds of Love did occasionally. But I think this one, even though the lyrics in many cases are a little bit weird, I think this is actually very, very underrated Tears for Fears album. I think is it depends on what you mean. It is Tears for Fears album because Roland Orzabal is singing, but Kurt Smith is no longer there. There's only one man instead of two, but it's still Tears for Fears, and it's one original member. But it is a very underrated album. I think it is really, really great. Highly recommended Tears for Fears album.
Yeah, they got together again and are touring.
Yeah, and some of the songs, the songs that I heard from the last album is really, really great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen the TikTok where Tears for Fears is singing a cappella? It's just amazing.
No, I don't
be on
have
this
TikTok.
must be on this latest tour.
I could believe that it would be amazing because the two of them
great.
have amazing voices.
Yeah.
And we were talking about this in one of our Dunkel episodes, that with this new tour and this new album, their voices just remain as strong as can be.
The only difference is that Roland Orzabal had this Frodo look, the Christmas Santa Claus look with his long beard on.
Gray, yeah. But what a band. I mean, just classic. So was that a 90s release or an 80s release? I wasn't clear there.
95. It is from 95 since we
So
talked
they
about
did a
it.
90s record.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it was only one of member left. It was only Roland Orzabal left. Kurt Smith had quit the. I think they had a fallout and he quit the band. So
Did they have
Roland
a hit
Orzabal did.
or anything?
Pardon?
Was there a hit or anything on that record, or was there a video? It must have been.
If there was a hit, it was Raúl and the Kings of Spain, the title track.
Okay.
But it was pretty much a commercial failure.
Yeah.
But I think it's very underrated.
Well, because no one was probably looking for Tears for Fears in the 90s. You know, they were
No,
right.
A lot of the 80s bands that back then I listened still very much to the 80s while everybody else was talking bad about the 80s. I always been against the stream, I know, but I think that Tears for Fears, I listened very much to Tears for Fears still back then, even though I still admit that their 80s stuff is stronger than this one. It's still a good album.
Jorgen didn't have a flannel shirt.
No, I have a flannel jacket right now. Don't tell me I don't follow. I follow the stream, but it's way too late.
All right. Well, hey, Jason, what do you have up for us now?
Well, I would say, I had a flannel shirt in 91, but by 95 it was long gone. But actually, in mid-90s is really important for me because that's when I moved to Montreal for university, and that's when I went to all the big clubs there. Really cool stuff. So I'm going to show a couple more club records. This is underground stuff. So this is actually an album. Neil Landstrom It's called Brown by August. It's kind of a beat up copy that I got, used copy on Discogs. It's on Peace Frog Records out of the UK. But yeah, Neil Landstrom's actually from Scotland. He's like underground techno. I saw this guy perform or DJ. I'm not sure if it was a live set or a DJ set in Tokyo, the one and only time I went to Japan. First night we arrived, so like overnighter, red eye, all that kind of thing. The very next night we went to see Neil Landstrom at a club, and a day after that I was sick with a badass cold for a week. So was it worth it? I don't know. I got to see the legend. It's a pretty cool album. It's a double pack, as we would call them in singles. And I'll show one more. Since Chicago is going to be a running theme, by the way, for my records.
Cool.
This is, again on Relief, this is Green Velvet, the man. So Green Velvet, a.k.a. Cashmere, he ran the Relief label and the Casual Records label. And they just dominated in the mid-90s. Still going, but this guy was big on the rave scene. So the Green Velvet stuff is a little more techno. His Cashmere stuff is more house. Green vinyl, too, in the middle of the 90s.
Cashmere label?
Cashmere is the artist, and his label is called Casual. Cajual. So if you're digging in records and you find any of those kind of go a little higher price nowadays. Maybe in the States, maybe like 10 or 15 bucks used. Or more.
Yeah, that's when I see a 12-inch single that's even going for $7 or $8, I'm kind of like, geez, this better be damn good.
You want the cheap stuff sometimes, right? Yeah, I hear you. But some of this is pretty collectible.
All right. So, no, I'm saving the vinyl.
I'm playing Stunty's role today. Where's Stunty today?
I do not know.
He was jumping on later.
He might be on somebody else's stream right now. There's a lot of Sunday streams.
Stunty's always late. So.
All right, so this one, another dance track that was.
He's got a male modeling gig.
Yeah, we got, and it holds up pretty well, but that is La Bouche, Be My Lover. So this very, pop house music that was being played at the time, what I was dancing to at the time. So yeah, this has got 5 different mixes on it. This is produced by Brenner and Seraph, which doesn't mean anything to me. But it came from the forthcoming album, Sweet Dreams. So this was a case where, the single was being released prior to the album's released. And yes, well, Zeb, man, that's what I was doing. I was just having fun going to the clubs, and I went every week, and as I say, living in rural Michigan, so I needed to truck down to Lansing or Grand Rapids, and there was a time too that I went to a few clubs in Detroit. That was kind of fun because there was somebody I knew who was from Ann Arbor, and so we made a trip down to Detroit. To let's see, can't remember the name of it. Of course, these were all gay clubs. Menjo's. We went to Menjo's, and what was the other?
Jorgen's got it. Jorgen's got the same.
Yeah.
No, this is
different back. Mine has this is the back side of mine.
Actually, I have the single. I have the single for "Be My Lover" on vinyl somewhere.
This is the album.
Oh, that's the full album. Okay. Yeah. So it has the same cover as the single, right?
He's out of this one, out of this round.
I didn't meant to show it actually because I have a hard time seeing here what kind of a year this is. Is it 94, 95, 96? It doesn't say anywhere. So I skipped
high energy blur.
The album I think was 94, and then the singles were released in 95, but that was before the album was released. So,
but it also contains a really great song that was a hit this year, at least here in Europe, and that is a version of the soul track. I don't remember who did the original, but "Falling in Love." That one is really, really great.
But that is really commercial dance. Like, that's what we would call EDM now. Back then it was high energy. We call it high energy stuff. Euro dance. Yeah, exactly. That being said, I mean, some of those are Cheese favorites. I mean, you can't deny the melodies of some of those records.
As I said last week, to me it's not Cheese. To me it's original music, because I never quit listening to what I listened to back the years. That is why I have a wide range of musical taste, because I just keep collecting new music styles I like, but I don't quit listening to it just because we have a new calendar.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Well, so, as I was saying earlier, some of it didn't hold up, and I don't listen to it anymore. But some of this stuff, I'll get in a mood for, that kind of the high energy dance music. That was a really big thing. I was trying to think of that other club, Menjo's. I remember was in kind of a rough neighborhood, and so they had a secured parking lot that you could park to get into the club, and they would escort you from the parking lot into the club, and then you could get escorted from the club into the parking lot.
I had that happen to me in LA, actually. We went to a club in downtown. Like, downtown LA is tiny, right? We came out of the club, and I was like, we'll just get a taxi, Uber, whatever. And security guy was like, no, you don't go there. You're not going that block. You wait right here for that cab. But that's the United States, I figured. But also, gay clubs, absolutely, man. Like, I used to DJ at gay clubs a lot in the 2000s, and people would drive by and egg them. Right, like, it was real deal. In some of the small towns, right, you had to be really undercover kind of shit.
Yeah, it was
fucking bigots.
Right? It was always an adventure. But I wish I could remember. It was a big club, because Menjo's was a really big club, and then the other one
Detroit, or no? Is this Lansing?
No, this is Detroit.
In Detroit,
and it would have been maybe Royal Oak or, God, I wish I could remember the name of that club.
Richard, do you ever go back to Detroit for the DEMF, the Detroit Music Festival, Electronic Music Festival? It's in summer. It's a very big one. And apparently the after parties are just as good as the festival. So leave it at that. But Chris, I have a rock record I'm going to show for Chris because he's feeling left out.
All right.
Oh, no, I don't feel left out at all. So.
Well, Chris, what have you got for us?
Well, I have a few more CDs, a couple of albums I'm saving, but I think I'll show some 7-inches now. A lot of these maybe nobody else has heard of. We'll see. So the first one is called, the band is called Beatnik Film Stars, which I think is a great name. And it's like a EP called Pink Noise. It was released, they're an English group, but it was released in America on Slumberland Records. And it's actually, if you know Slumberland, you think of them as being pretty indie pop, twee-ish. This is actually a little bit harder than most of their stuff. This kind of reminds me of Sebadoh from that time period, mid-90s. And then, I don't know, does anybody remember the band Suddenly Tammy?
Never heard of.
Okay, so Suddenly Tammy was, I remember... I got turned on by them. Somebody made a mixtape for me, and there was one of the songs. There was a female lead singer. It was basically a 3-piece, but instead of having guitar, they had piano. So it was like piano, bass, drums. So pretty indie sounding stuff. Then K Records. So this Nikki McClure, Godzilla. Very indie pop-ish. And then on Matador, Mecha Normal.
Yeah, Mecha Normal's great. I have an album by them.
So I don't have any of their albums. I've got probably about, I think I have 3 or 4 of their 7-inches.
You showed the Pink Noise, and then that was the name of their album. It made me think of this. This is a group called Pink Noise.
Oh, okay.
And the album is Graffiti Youth. This is experimental. This is very experimental, kind of noise.
American? Noise rock, or
I don't know much about them, and the reason I ordered this record It wasn't very expensive. I ordered it because I was ordering some other records, and if I ordered a couple more, I was going
Yeah.
to have the same shipping cost. Um,
Oh,
because I was just buying a single. I was buying
I
a
have some
single,
pink
and
noise.
yeah,
Apparently, I have pink noise.
you
Dream Code
do
on Sacred.
on the
Dream
Kill
Code on
Shaman
Sacred
label.
Bones. Yeah, maybe it's a different pink noise because there's one that's more recent, 2008.
I was looking for a copyright on here, and it's got to be recent because it's got a barcode on it. I mean, it's not that old.
The one I
So
have is on Sacred Bones out of New York. That's a good indie label.
now this is on Kill Shaman.
Yep. These indie bands with their tiny handwritten font, they didn't realize that 30 years later we'd be squinting to read the damn things.
Oh, I know, right?
Yeah.
That's another saving thing about, or one thing that annoys me so much about some of the reissues that are on vinyl is that they put in these liner notes in which the font is like maybe 4 picas,
Yeah.
and it's like, and I'm like, good Lord, man, I've got old eyes. I can't read this.
You gotta
Jeez.
get a magnifying glass. I've seen people on the VC with a magnifying glass off to the
Oh,
side.
yeah.
Do it. I'm
It's
talking some of
light.
the metal guys too. Like the metal guys, no joke, man. They got the magnifying glass.
Well, the metal
Right.
guys are getting old too.
Yeah, we're all getting old, right?
Yeah. All right. Well,
So
Jorgen.
that must be a different pink noise then. That must be a '90s. That's a
Well,
'90s '95.
Jorgen, you can go here and I'll look. I have it entered in my Discogs, and I'll look and see what there's some more information about it. So, what do you got for us, Jorgen?
I'm taking the one I promised that as we are into the dance genre now. I'm taking what I promised, my little bunch of Eurodance albums that I put together in one. As Seb has already accused Richard of showing more crappy music than I have.
I saw that.
I
Yes.
felt like I need to protect my
Wow.
reputation and drag myself down again. So I'm going first with Corona, the band, not the virus. This is the album Rhythm of the Night. No, you're going to feel the pain.
I have a Corona single, but yeah, it was
Yes,
released in a different.
You showed that last week.
Yeah, Rhythm of the Night. Yeah.
This is the album Rhythm of the Night, and the Rhythm of the Night song was sung by Jenny B. She was called, then after one single only, they switched singer to this one, Olga de Souza, original from Brazil. So on the rest of their hit singles, they have a total different vocalist. I think that though I like a Rhythm of the Night song, I think several of the songs on this album, like Baby Baby, that you mentioned in the beginning, Try 'Em Out, are better actually.
Yeah,
That's a big one.
Rhythm of the Night to me holds up pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And that was one of my favorites too at the time.
Yeah. Here we have a band that still is one of my absolute favorites. This is Basic Element from Sweden. I think that 95 was, in my opinion, in strongest year for Eurodance, maybe because back then it was more high energy, more explosive production, more combined a little bit with trance maybe. So and I think that this Ultimate Ride by Basic Element is one of my absolute favorite Eurodance albums of all time because of the explosive energy that it has.
Don't know that one.
I mentioned U96.
Oh, I remember them. Yeah.
This is Club Bizarre, and in my opinion, a really great maybe one of the absolute best albums by U96. This is both great dance tracks, but also very dreamy, very relaxing Euro trance almost. I really like the atmosphere in this one. Eurodance from Britain, not often you see that. Urban Cookie Collective and Tales from the Magic Fountain.
They
The
had a
Key,
video. I remember them. Yeah.
The Key, The Secret was their big hits.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
And we have from Germany, a band I showed last week, but they also did an album in '95 called The Master Boy Generation of Love, the album. Also a really groovy Eurodance album.
And that mask thing is like their trademark, right?
Yep, it is
Okay.
their logo, more or less.
Yeah.
Culture Beat,
Oh, yes.
Mr. Vane. This is the second
Oh,
album,
Mr.
Inside
Vane.
Out. I think that this album is a whole lot stronger than the first one, actually. I have a song called Walk the Same Line that was a single in '96. That is a really, really great one. So this is a better Culture Beat album, in my opinion.
Okay, I got a question for
Beat,
Jorgen.
they had that Mr. Vane as a single here in 1993.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of that Eurodance was like 92, 91, 93. But Jorgen, did you ever buy, I mean, it looks like you bought the albums, but did you ever buy like mix CDs? Like, did you ever get any Canadian guys like Chris Shepard or MC Mario, those DJ mixes?
I'm going to admit that
Eurodance?
mixes to me, I'm a single guy. I'm a guy who likes the singles
Okay.
because that is what's hearing in the radio and the melody. When it comes to remixes, I have a hard time listening to long 7-8 minute remixes that sounds nothing like
No, I
the
mean,
original version.
Well, I mean like DJ mixes, so like the songs are all put together.
No, I see the singles or full length. That is my normal dose.
Gotcha.
I tell you,
Yeah.
whenever Mr. Vane came on, the shirts came off.
Woohoo! Yeah, that's the cheese.
I never was a fan of Mr. Wayne when it came out. I never understood that greatness. I don't hate it anymore, but I still think that songs on this album is better. I like the follow-up song for Mr. Wayne's Got to Get It. I think that one is a whole lot better than Mr. Wayne, in my opinion.
Yeah. All right. Now I looked up the Pink Noise. It was the Pink Noise that I showed was from 2009 on the Kill Shaman label. But Pink Noise has started releasing records in 2008, and they have continued to release.
So it's a different band. Chris
right,
has got
yeah.
a different Pink Noise because the one that I've got the one that Richard's got.
Well, the band is called Beatnik Film Stars. They call the
right, yeah.
Noise. So
Well,
Yeah, it
that
was.
really does
I was
solve
just
all the
saying that the
problems.
name of their record, Pink Noise, made me
Gotcha.
think of this band called Pink Noise, which was
Not to
very
be
experimental.
confused with the legendary Pink Dots. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a legendary Pink Dot story.
Okay, what's your story?
So this would have happened in '96 or '97, but let's go ahead and tell the story today. So, as I've made it pretty clear, I'm like a rock guy, alternative rock guy. I started graduate school in 1996, and I had a couple of roommates. One of my roommates was very much into the same kind of music I was, and his brother and his brother's friend had like a grunge band. And then we had another friend who was more into like Journey and like 80s AOR. But we all went to the legendary Pink Dots concert in Denver. We were all dressed like we were like roadies for like Alice in Chains, and we completely did not fit in at all because it was like
serious chin stroking kind of experimental crowd, right?
Yeah. I hadn't even heard of them. I just went because somebody said, "Oh, this band's cool. Let's go see them." And they were kind of cool, but we were definitely not in the target audience.
But you have some now, right? You bought some.
I actually don't have any, but
No? Okay. I don't have any either, but Stunty apparently does. So
The legendary Pink Dots. I do not know of them.
we got to check them out.
Yeah. All right. Well, then, Jason, I think we're up to you. What do you got for us?
All right, I'm gonna mix it up a little bit. Instead of doing just underground club hits, I'm gonna show a rock album, and I'm talking some heavy rock. It's a band called Fight. It's heavy metal. This is Rob Halford's second project after Judas Priest.
Ah, okay.
So after Priest, he does have his solo stuff called Halford, but I guess in the 90s, he had this band called Fight. It's really awesome stuff. It's very like thrashy and what they call groove metal. Now, I didn't follow metal in the 90s at all. I was way in the clubs by then, and hip-hop as well. But this is a reissue, Record Store Day reissue, and I actually got it from Mega Jeff. We did a trade. I don't know if you guys know the channel by Mega Jeff, but it's a good channel. But so this is the second album I found. So how I found Fight, just randomly in a thrift store one day, I found a cassette. This band called Fight. So I was like, okay, metal, cheap cassette, I'll bring it home. Wait, Rob Halford's on this? What? It's pretty good. It's called like Words of something. And then this is the second album, A Small Deadly Space. Pretty good. I think they only did like 3 albums in total, this band. I'll just show one for this round.
Interesting.
But,
all right, yeah.
Yeah.
I might be interested in something like that because I
Feeling
like
in a
me some
metal
Judas
mode.
Priest.
And I mean, Halford, you cannot deny the vocals, right? He's amazing.
Right, yeah. Well, I've got just one more, not one more to show, but one more dance oriented. And then I'm going to be going into, and there's the one that, I'll show eventually, and I'm surprised Jorgen hasn't shown it yet. If he's going to show it, maybe he doesn't have this one. But anyway, and this is one that maybe I can't even remember what it sounds like. I must have liked it at the time because I bought it, and that's Paula Abdul, My Love Is For Real, which I'm not exactly sure that I am, I might be slightly embarrassed to show this right now.
You shouldn't.
But yeah, this was
Guilty pleasure.
lot of mix. This has got 7 different mixes on this CD. One of them by Junior Vasquez, one of them by Peter Mokran and Lafayette Carthan,
Oh yeah.
Rhett Lawrence,
Some
E Smooth.
East Move's good. Yeah, he's Chicago, I think.
So that's probably because I remember I liked a lot of Junior Vasquez's mixes. I really liked his stuff, and I think that's probably one of the mixes that they played a lot in the Chicago clubs, and so that's probably why I picked it up. I should probably give it a listen, and because these CDs of the dance mixes that I bought at the time, I bought them because I really liked the song that they were playing in the club. So I'll give it another spin. So, hey, Randy.
What's up, Randy? Randy just missed my rock show, so. Oh, Jorgen's got Paula Abdul.
This is the full length. Head Over Heels.
I barely remember that one.
This is Paula Abdul, the full length.
Yeah.
I also a huge fan of My Love Is For Real. I thought that was the number 1 song in my opinion that year.
It probably was one of the top singles that.
It's so amazing atmosphere in that song.
But yeah, in fact, after this stream, I'm going to listen to the Junior Vasquez mixes and see if that's probably the reason why I bought it. Okay, so
huge, man.
Chris, what do you have?
All right, so the next one I'm going to show, this is almost going to represent like a whole almost subgenre of band. So this is Hum. You'd Prefer an Astronaut. And so this kind of represents that group of bands that got like signed in like 94, 95 by major labels, put out a record that was semi-successful. This one had a semi-hit called Stars on it. You would probably recognize it if you heard the song. Then a couple years later released a better album that completely tanked because the record company didn't promote it at all because they were already planning on dropping them because alternative music was passé by like 1997. So there's probably, if I did enough research, there's several bands that fit this particular mold. So
yeah, I don't remember them at all. So
I think you would remember the song Stars if you heard it. It's one of those where you probably heard the song, you never learned who the band's name was. So,
and that happened a lot. As I said earlier, it happened a lot in the 90s because I would hear, especially if it was music that was played in a bar or a club, I knew I liked it, but I didn't know who it was. I didn't have Shazam, so that I could figure
Right.
out what of course, Shazam doesn't always work with mixes, I have found. It will, if there's enough of the original release, it'll pick it up. But if it's a really weird dance mix, Shazam fails a lot. All right. So Jorgen, I'm really wondering if you're gonna. I'll keep holding back on this one to see if you're gonna show it. But what do you got?
This is an album that it took me almost 15 years to realize that, hey, this is a good album. I'm talking about Alanis Morissette's Jagged Little Pill. Did I hear some doubts about over there?
I had that when it came out, but I don't have it anymore.
Back then, I thought that this was pretty boring, actually, until I heard Ironic, and I thought that was by far her best song, but that was it. Then I heard the entire album many years later, and I realized that, hey, this was actually really good. How could
the
I?
rest of the album is much better than the song Ironic.
But I think that this is a really great singer-songwriter album. I think it is. She has done a really great job. I really like this one. So
I will be showing a much better female singer-songwriter album later that didn't sell nearly as well as that one did.
Why am I not surprised? Because I'm always the one that shows the one that nobody likes.
I mean,
I had that one. I had Jagged Little Pill when it came out, but then it didn't. But I hope you show. There were a couple female singer songwriters from that era that were they were, in my opinion as well, a lot stronger than.
I think
Ironic really pushed Alanis Morissette up there.
Yeah. I will admit, Jorgen, that CD is back there. I just didn't pull it out. So,
but I think that I like Alanis Morissette. Only one song by Alanis I'm not that huge fan of, and that is the song "Thank You." But that is for a later date.
See,
but
that is an album I could not stand when it first came out, but I love that record now. I'm like, that is a cheese one for me, right? Yeah. That's a road trip record. Always put that in the car when you're driving.
We always made fun of
the first time I heard Alanis Morissette and the word cheese in one sentence. I never heard that before.
Have you ever heard her first album? Actually, before she went alternative, she actually did a dance record or whatever, right?
We used to mock her for the song Ironic because it was completely the wrong use of the term ironic.
Yeah, totally.
She was just singing about people with shitty luck. It was a catchy song, and it was on the radio all day, all night,
all freaking long.
Yeah,
yep. She's from my town where I am right now, Ottawa. So Ottawa.
Okay,
yep.
All right. Well, then that brings us up to you, Jason.
All right, I'm going to show a monster hit from '95 on the underground scene. And I hope Richard knows this song. Maybe it's somewhere in the back of your brain from a club or something. But if not, you should definitely pick it up. Check it out. And that's Everybody Be Somebody by Roughneck.
The name Roughneck triggers something, but I don't recognize.
So it's on the Masters at Work record label from New York. Masters at Work, Little Louis Vega and the gang. But this track is just a monster because it's got a really nice female vocal, but then it's got a sample from Nitzer Ebb, industrial dance band, right? Just shouting, everybody, be somebody. Just great. A really minimal groove, killer bass line. And I just got this on Discogs just the other day from a seller in Germany. He sent me the record in the most...
What's the song again?
Everybody Be Somebody by Roughneck. Came on. It was huge. When it came out... Now, when these club hits would come out, you would actually hear them sometimes 3 times in the same night. If there was 3 different DJs, they'd all play a copy of this. And they did. I was in Montreal, and when this came out, you knew. By the next day, you were like, I got to go pick that up because it's a big one. But yeah, I just got this from a Discogs seller who sent it to me in the most flimsiest condition and didn't even include an inner sleeve. I had to add one. So I opened it up. It's just the record just sitting in the cardboard. But anyway.
Jesus. Yeah, it's
I know.
amazing sometimes with some sellers with the, you know,
The vinyl's actually pretty close to near mint. There's no scratches on it. So from a '90s club record, those could be beat up.
oh yeah, I am
Yeah,
finding
that's a
that.
good one. That you should have that one, Richard. I mean, definitely look it up online.
Well,
It's a lot of fun.
I've queued it up so I can give it a listen after
And do you
we're
know
done
Night
here.
Sareb? You know Night Sareb?
Yeah, I know that. Yeah,
Yeah. So, I mean, they're not usually in a house kind of vibe, but they were like electronic body music, like industrial dance, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
they're sampling
All right.
that.
All right. So I'll still give Jorgen a chance because he didn't show what I thought. You know.
Dying with curiosity.
So, but I'm going into the vinyl now, and I showed this band before when it wasn't their debut, but it was like their sophomore album, and it's the Illinois band Poster Children, and this is their release Junior Citizen, which is really strong, um, really good. Again, post rock, grunge, little bit of math rock, uh, and just really strong lyrics, really good material. I mean, Daisy Chain Reaction was a really strong record. It got a lot of play on MTV on the song If You CK. Um, got a lot of play on 120 minutes, and that's how I learned about them. And then this record came out. So what was that? Daisy Chain Reaction was 1990, I think.
I think it was 91.
Okay, and this
I
is
have Daisy Chain on vinyl. I have that one on CD.
yeah. This is and I picked up the reissue. And as I was talking again before, all right. So the liner notes, they've got the lyrics for all the songs, but everything is in capital letters and there's no punctuation. It just, oh God, it just, to try and follow along with this, it's like, oh man. It's
I
just,
wouldn't even try to read that.
oh yeah. A cute photo for, the back.
Yeah.
Nice kind of, anime style cartoon. Like kind of like a speed racer kind of.
If I remember right, they're from like Champaign,
Right.
Urbana, Illinois. Actually, the Hum that I showed a little bit earlier, they're also from there. The Hum's definitely more. They were definitely more commercial sounding than Poster Children.
Yeah, this was. I was so glad to have discovered them because as they continued to release material, they kind of kept the again, as I said at the beginning, when Kurt Cobain died, the push with grunge and post rock and post punk seemed to wane, and there seemed to be this return back to more standard bro rock kind of music. So Poster Children was definitely continued to be a breath of fresh air coming out of that realm. And right, and Champaign Urbana, there was quite a few bands that came out of that area in the 70s and in the 80s and in the 90s. So they were it was a good incubator for music. So then that brings us up to you, Chris.
All right. So I'm going to show the album that I'm going to claim is way better than the Alanis Morissette record. And I before I show what it is, and I'm guessing some of you will guess who it is if you follow my channel. I know right now that Jorgen would not like this record as much as the Alanis record. There are other records by this artist I would recommend to Jorgen, but I'm going to show the Juliana Hatfield Only Everything. So I got the reissue that came out a few years ago on Run Out Groove. They did it on 2 discs. They used side 4 for bonus tracks. Gatefold, tiny print you can't read. And then the original CD track listing. And this was definitely a heavier record than Become What You Are, which was the one she had out a couple years earlier. This ended up being her final album on Atlantic Records. Atlantic Records initially was pushing her pretty hard, and for a variety of reasons, some dealing with Juliana had some mental health issues. She's terrible at self-promotion. They switched and pushed the Jewel record instead, who was also on Atlantic. But I will always say this is way better than Alanis Morissette, even though Alanis Morissette was way more popular.
I'm going to admit that I've heard of the name. I maybe have heard some of the songs, but it's not something that has been stuck with me. And I think you're right. I think that Alanis Morissette is way better.
Yeah. And there are some later Juliana Hatfield records that I think you would like more than that particular record. That record is actually one of probably the second heaviest record of her career. They went pretty.
Ooh, I got the porn site.
Oh yeah. So there's a lot of like pretty heavy layered guitars. There's one song on the album that's really a shoegaze song, and there's a couple. The Universal Heartbeat single was probably a more had more of a pop hook to it. And those that follow my channel know I'm kind of a Juliana fanboy. I guess mentioning Alanis's name or Juliana's name brought out sexfine.pro.
As I said, I barely heard the name, but that's pretty much it. So I'm not that much. I haven't that much check on Juliana Hatfield.
Yeah.
I see that somebody. It's not. It looks like somebody's already deleted them or whatever. So.
Yeah.
I know a few people have wrenches so that they can take care of that, but I've never had the Sex Fiend Pro, bomb my streams, and now I feel like I've reached a how do you say I've reached a new
audience.
Well, a new achievement, in recognition.
I would stop being so happy, because if you're saying more positive things, you will have them.
Well, I know that there's enough people that I've given wrenches to that they can certainly wrench them out. All right. So I thought I remember Jewel at the time, of all this, and Jewel did have a release in 1995, but it must have been a later release, because I'm trying to think of what I went and looked at the track list for Pieces of You, and I don't recognize the song. I am trying to remember that, because wasn't she the one who did the song about God or something? Was that Jewel, or was that somebody else?
I think wasn't that Joan Osborne?
Joan Osborne, that's the other one, right? Joan Osborne. Yeah. And which one of the two of them was living in a car when they saw
I think that was Jewel.
That was Jewel, right? Because she's from Alaska, right?
Yeah, Jewel's from Alaska.
Is 1986.
And I know.
Okay.
96, sorry, 96.
Specifically, Jewel was on Atlantic Records, which was the same label as Juliana. Yeah. And at some point, Atlantic Records decided to de-emphasize pushing Juliana and went all in pushing the Jewel record. And from a business standpoint, that was probably the right decision, because that album went platinum. So.
Yeah, right. Yeah, she was homeless at one point. Okay. Well then, Jorgen, up to you here.
I would assume that the one you're talking about, I don't know, but might be this in that case. But it is a good album still, so that's why I picked it out, and I like it. Ace of Base, The Bridge.
That's not the one. But yeah, it's a good one.
I'll take another one.
All right.
No, but I think that this is Ace of Base is more a little bit more danceable actually than in the Sign album, in my opinion here. But I like them both. I think this is a really great Ace of Base album. I think Never Gonna Say I'm Sorry is a really great and catchy, really great dance track.
Yeah, I remember them, but I don't remember them, if you know what I mean. But I remember, yeah, there were a couple of bands, Ace of Base, and Ace of Base is Sweden, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. And there was another
Gothenburg.
band.
Gothenburg.
There was another Swedish band, I think, at that time, too, that I remember but don't remember.
Roxette.
Yeah, Roxette. Yes.
Wasn't Roxette a bit earlier?
Yeah, but Roxette had they had their American hits earlier, yes,
Yeah.
but they still exist and released albums in '95.
Yeah, yeah. Right, yep, that's what I was thinking of, David. All right, well, we're up to Jason, but he's AOL at the moment. So I'll still wait on the one that I was, I'm surprised that Jorgen hasn't shown yet. And this is one I really like this band, but I'm not much of a fan of this release that came out in 1995, and that's Bad Brains. I mean, I really love their early work, and this one is just, I don't know, it's just lost its energy. It lost it. They were kind of losing. There's some good songs on here, but yeah, it's not as strong as our earlier material. Not as not a hardcore punk anymore. A little more. It's not even the kind of reggae or Rastafarian that they were doing and mixing with the punk that they did with the earlier ones. It just, I don't know. There was something about it that seemed to be a little. Maybe it's the production. Is this a new producer for them? I mean, yeah, it was produced by Rick Ocasek. I don't know if Rick Ocasek did their.
Rick Ocasek.
Huh?
Rick Ocasek from the Cars?
Yes. He produced this for them. I don't know if he produced their earlier ones. I would have to go and look.
I'm pretty sure he didn't.
Yeah, and so maybe that is the problem with the record is, Rick Ocasek's production. Because yeah, I wasn't a fan. I'm not really a fan of that. When I found Bad Brains, and I just loved their first 3-4 albums, and so and then I picked this up, and I'm like, that it kind of was like, oh nope, I'm sticking with the earlier stuff.
I remember the God Is Love song. I don't think I've heard the rest of that album. So,
well, I'm here to tell you, you don't need to. So,
okay.
It's, yeah. He produced one of their earlier ones. All right. So I don't know which one it is. I have their early stuff. And in fact, I got that Punk Note reissue of their second album, Remain in Light.
Yeah.
Which is, it's a nice one. That's a great one. Their eponymous debut is a really strong record. And then their third one is really strong too. I think this was their fourth release, maybe. Rick produced Rock for Light. Okay. And that's a good record. So, but yeah, this one here, cool cover, but yeah, nope, not a big fan of it. We skipped by Jason.
Sorry, guys, I had a sale here, so
no, that's all right. We'll be coming back to you shortly.
Okay. Good.
So, although I personally only have 2 more things to show. So
I'm on my last piece of vinyl, so
yeah.
I got
so
5, but I can show a couple at a time.
Yeah. So we can get ready to wrap this up. We're approaching 2 hours also. So not bad for a year that most of us didn't have a lot of stuff to show. So Chris, what do you have?
Okay, so the last one I'm going to show is going to be standard popular rock that lets people know, the Foo Fighters. So this was the Foo Fighters debut. Of course, Kurt had passed away, and this album, my understanding is that Dave Grohl had already written probably most, if not all, of these songs. because he was never able to get any songs on a Nirvana album. This is still, and I liked Foo Fighters for like about their first 3 albums, and I kind of lost interest in them. And I would still say that I think this is my favorite Foo Fighters, the first one.
I'm going to admit
That's a cool one.
I had just read recently, and I didn't read the whole article, but I was skimming it. But apparently, Kurt Cobain wanted to fire him. Didn't want him in the band anymore.
I mean, there's been all kinds of rumors throughout the years that was a possibility. I know Courtney and Dave have never gotten along, and I think Dave was getting to the point. I think he felt a little bit frustrated because he was writing songs and he didn't have any place to put them. My guess is that if Kurt had lived, my guess is that the band would probably have broken up and Dave would have ended up forming Foo Fighters anyway. Yeah. But of course, we would have gotten to see Kurt do something else. But that, of course, didn't happen.
Yeah.
I'm going to admit that Foo Fighters have never been something that I listened to. And I think that's pretty obvious when you look at my taste. But until I heard that when I did DJ's covers last year, I thought that was very funny, actually. And the song Love Dies Young from the last album, I was shocked over how good it was to be Foo Fighters. And I thought, do I like a song by Foo Fighters? Now
it happens, Jorgen. It can happen. It happened to me too, man. I never listened to them in all the 90s, but then I actually went to see them in concert. By the way, I don't recommend that. I don't recommend going to a concert of a band that you don't know any of their songs.
I don't like doing that either.
No. It was at a festival, though, right? It was outdoors. Anyway, I did kind of recognize a couple songs, like, just in the back of the head. And Hero is my favorite one by them. Is that on that album? Is that like they're on the first album?
Hero, I'm pretty sure it is. I'm going to look.
That's my jam.
No. Hero would be on the second album, The Color and the Shape.
I will say, Jorgen, like they do write hits. I mean, these guys do have some hit making happen in there, so it's not boring all the time.
Yeah, but I agree about a lot of times when I go see a live show, I often I'll be interested. My curiosity is piqued by the opening act, but because I am unfamiliar with their music, and because most of the time the acoustics in the venue are really shitty. I can't hear what they're singing. I can't hear, So I generally now in an outdoor venue it would be a little bit different where you're not getting that echo that you would get in an arena, or even some small venues here in Chicago. It
was just funny standing in this crowd of thousands and everybody singing every lyric.
Yeah,
like the one guy who doesn't.
And you're like,
I don't know. Pretty good. Pretty good. I like that one.
I'm feeling a bit lonely here.
Yeah.
Well, all right, Jorgen, what do you got here that you want to throw a few out there to finish up?
Oh, I can take more than one.
Yes.
I would assume that Jason also has some for you, so I'm taking a few now. Normally, we're not here to show compilation, but this is a very special compilation, so I'm doing an exception here. That is a compilation. Right. This is a compilation that I really do like. The Pet Shop Boys Alternative. And this is a compilation with all of the B-sides. This is a double CD set. Because Pet Shop Boys normally does B-sides like nobody. They do B-sides that could easily be on any of their albums, actually.
Yeah.
And they know that, and that's why they actually released an album with only their B-sides. And also, which I also think is really, really fun, is an interview also where when Neil and Chris of the Pet Shop Boys, where they explain the purpose of every B-side.
Oh, that's interesting.
So This is the B-side from the first album until the very album. Highly recommended, because Pet Shop Boys does B-sides like nobody. Even songs that could be hits. There's B-side for Go West song is a song called Shameless. That could easily have become one of their biggest hits, in my opinion. It is a really highly recommended compilation.
Yeah, before you show another one, I wanted to mention Pet Shop Boys was this would have been, this was a while ago, maybe 2016 or 17, maybe 2018. They played here in Chicago, and another thing I don't like doing is going to a show with somebody else who is unfamiliar, with the music, because their lack of enthusiasm for the show sometimes is kind of a drag. And but anyway, I asked my roommate if he wanted to go, because I had an extra ticket, and he knew nothing about the Pet Shop Boys. And it was a fantastic show, and he really liked it. It was just a really, really amazing, the whole thing when they opened it up, with their and it was a good venue. It was at the Auditorium Theater here in Chicago, which has really fantastic acoustics, and they really knew how to take advantage of it. So
I would love to see that.
Very interesting when it comes to Pet Shop Boys live, because Neil Tennant isn't exactly the most energetic live person running around the stage.
Yeah,
but still they managed to be very, very good and very entertaining, because they have so much in the back that you have to keep.
I was going to say, do they do visuals or something? Yeah,
oh yeah, there were lots of visuals. And it was even almost 3D visuals.
Okay.
Even when they walked out onto the stage, and the stage is not that deep, but the way they had the visuals, it made it look like they were walking through this tunnel, and then they were growing bigger and bigger and bigger. And you're right, once they're out there on stage, neither one of them move around them a lot, but they have these really crazy costumes.
It's like when you watch New Order. New Order is a really great band normally on album. But when it comes to live, they might be one of the most boring bands, because Bernard Sumner is no energetic person. He stands there.
Try Kraftwerk, same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like.
Right. Sorry to interrupt you on that one, Jorgen, but
I'm also showing you two single from the then new Batman Forever album movie. I really like this, produced by Nelly Hooper, Soul to Soul. And we have Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me, Kill Me. This is a really, really great U2 song. Toto, Tamboo. Not their best, but still a great, relaxing, atmospheric one. This is a little specialty, sadly forgotten. This is a British band called Juice. And Juice is what you could call something that sounds like what would become Steps, like Steps would do. Easy pop, disco style, boy bandish, even though there are girls here. But I actually like Juice, because they released some really great tracks, and there are more of a dance sound to it that I do like. Call It Love. I also like I Need You, that was in the British Eurovision Song Contest finals back then. So highly recommended. I had to special order it because it was not big here in Sweden at all. And Britpop again, Cast. This is all change. A really, really great and sadly forgotten Britpop album, pretty much in the Oasis style. So,
all right.
Next tracks later on.
All right. Well, we're closing out here, so
closing.
I have a couple more than that. So later.
Well, all right. Well, I'll let you close this out then. All right. So, Jason, what do you got?
Okay, so I'll show all five, the last ones here, quickies.
Sure.
Okay, because I really think, Richard, I'm going to send you a note because I really think you got to look up some of these ones. They were monsters in the clubs back then. This one's on the Yoshitoshi label. And it's called Give Me Love by Alcatraz. Now, there's a music video for this, too. It's a very long song, minimalist, a little bit in house, but the groove, again, unbelievable bass line, huge vocal, female vocal. Alcatraz, Give Me Love. And these guys were actually from D.C., so some D.C. deep house. I don't know if you ever heard of Deep Dish, but they were kind of involved in that.
No.
Now, from Philly, Josh Wink. This was a massive hit. This is another one. I actually think I lost some hearing when this record came out. I was at a club in Montreal, and all three DJs that night all played it once each in their set when this record came out. It's kind of a rave kind of anthem. It's got a break beat on it and a crazy squelchy acid line, and it's funky as hell. It's called Higher State of Consciousness by Josh Wink. Wink, Higher State of Consciousness. Of course, on the Strictly Rhythm label, which was a big New York-based dance label, still around. Now for something a little more serious, Kenny Larkin. This is an album. Didn't have many albums today, but Kenny Larkin from Detroit. So we're coming out of the Detroit sound now.
I know that name.
Birthplace of techno. And he's actually second wave. So first wave, you have the Detroit 3, right? Kevin Saunderson, Derek May, and Juan Atkins. The second wave is 90s. Okay, the first wave is like late 80s. The second wave is the 90s. And this is a really great listening album. If you're into like Carl Craig, any of those kind of guys, I recommend it. It's very futuristic. It's called Metaphor. It's on the R&S label. And last but not least, okay, two singles. Oh my God, this is a massive fucking track. Can We Live by Gesto Funk. I don't think Gesto Funk was actually a house band. I think they were kind of like a dance funk kind of group. But this is house remixes of Can We Live. Big male vocal on there. Kind of gay club anthem. Amazing track, Gesto Funk. And last but not least, I've been mentioning Casual Records. Casual Records and Green Velvet. So this is a Chicago label again. Started up in the 90s. You could call it second, third wave Chicago house. And the artist is Dajay. Amazing vocalist. And Day by Day, this is a double pack, so it's got lots of remixes, like very smooth, kind of silky, kind of deep house. Just beautiful vocal. Best vocals you're going to get around. And she's still around. I saw her live in Chicago. I went to a club I'm going to say it was Midtown, because just on the south side. You don't go to the south side of Chicago, right? That's definitely not if you're a white guy. You don't go to the south side of Chicago. But she was playing live in a club and belting it out. Great vocal. So Dajay and Casual. So 95 is a big year for me, man. I'm glad. Thank you for doing this. I'm glad I jumped on. So.
I thought when you mentioned Kenny Larkin, I was thinking, wait a minute, I might have something. And actually, no. What I have is Terrence Dixon. So
yeah, he's also good too. Yeah, he's kind of second wave.
Yeah.
But the funny thing about Kenny Larkin is he actually moved to L.A. in the 2000s and became a comedian. He also does stand-up comedy in L.A. I don't know if it's under the same name or under another name, but
yeah. All right.
Kenny Larkin.
Well, I guess I will risk stealing Jorgen's thunder with my last two here. I'm just really surprised that if you had it lined up to show that you haven't shown it yet, and that is the eponymous release of Erasure. So this was after I Say. And what a lush and beautiful and amazing recording. I know this is available on vinyl, but I do like it on CD because of the way the songs just flow right into each other. There are really no track breaks in any of the songs. And I think the song Sono Luminous is just such an amazing and beautiful song. It just really gives me the feels. when I listen to it.
I can easily say why I haven't shown it, because I only have it as a cassette copy.
Oh, okay.
I can't show it.
I didn't know they did a '90s album.
Yeah, this is well. They had a couple others too after this.
Have it. They release this album still to this date, so they still exist. So
Good band.
Rock Me Gently is another one that's just such an amazing, and it's got such a beautiful, very spacey interlude in that song. It's just, yeah, what an amazing release. And like I say,
it's a good album, no doubt about it. It's not my favorite, but it's a good album, no doubt about it.
I like the one where they did the ABBA covers.
ABBA-esque was
that was sick. And Chains of Love, that's my jam by Erasure. Chains of Love.
I have ABBA-esque, and then of course Pop the Pop first 20 hits. Right. Which is, those are all really great. But I don't, the mood of this particular one, and it's different. I think what you're alluding to, Jorgen, it's very different from the very popishness of a lot of their other stuff, which is really, really good. This was a little different, a little moodier, but I do really, really like it.
There's actually only one Erasure album that I fear, actually, that it might be crappy, and that is the Love Boat album that came 2001, I think, because that is the first time when it tried to move away from electronica and do more acoustic, and the singles didn't sound all that good, actually. So I'm a little bit afraid of that one.
Yeah, I would be kind of a little timid about checking that out too. If it's all acoustic, that's like, wait a minute, but sometimes when a band does something that's completely different from what they normally do, it can be really good. But you're right. I would be a little timid. Now this one is a reissue that was, when did this come out? This came out the original was 1995. But this was a reissue in 2021. Knew nothing about it. It was a blind buy. And that's this one, Pluto Rising. And so I guess who is it? Who's the DJ? Who's the guy who did this? Rollo. Or Rollo, I don't know. Rollo, it's one L, so I think it's Rollo. The album cover really intrigued me, and then when I got it home, it's on some nice blue vinyl. Really, really like what this is. This is, I guess, what you would call. I don't know. What would you call this?
A vinyl.
Commercial dance? Rollo kind of did more commercial dance, I guess.
But it's almost kind of, what do you call it? Man. Dark wave or...
Is it trancey or no?
Yeah, it's a little bit... a little bit. It's almost on the... I've only listened to it a few times. I know I really like it.
Fair. I'll check it out.
What is it's a little bit in the genre of like a little bit of Stereolab, and then but it's also got that, not house, but more of a I can't think of what the term is.
Rollo is the brother of singer Dido, apparently.
Oh yeah, really?
What is that called? Let me look it up. What is it called again?
It is called Pluto Rising.
Pluto Rising.
And it was originally released in 95.
Oh yeah, I see it now.
So,
it's an album.
Yeah, it's a double album with the 2021 reissue. There were some songs added to it.
It's fast. It's kind of trancey techno almost, but it sounds like.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it is. Trance. That's more what I was thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Um,
good trance. It seems pretty good, man.
yeah.
I picked that up. Yeah, I wouldn't mind picking that up.
So I was really pleased, and it was a blind buy,
Oh,
and kind of expensive
oh.
because this particular store, you're probably familiar with Gramophone Records
Yeah, I know
here in
Gramophone. Yeah, yeah.
Chicago.
They
His
don't mess around.
Yeah,
Good
he
stuff.
prices high. He
Was it 10
prices
bucks?
high.
20 bucks
Oh
for an
shit, it was
album?
more than that.
Oh, wow. Well, I
Yeah,
think it's probably
I'm
pretty
thinking it
rare.
was like $30.
Yeah, albums from 90s are pretty rare, even electronic ones. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's what I have to close
Cool.
out. So, Chris, you already showed your last ones. So, what do you have,
Here comes
Jorgen,
Jorgen.
to
Here comes
close us
Jorgen.
out? And Jason, do you have any others that you wanna?
No, I'm out. I mean, I'm not
All right.
home, right? So I got more
So,
at home, but that's what I
take
brought.
us to the home stretch, Jorgen.
Yes. Starting with the debut of one of my favorite singers that I, to this date, really, really like. She was only 16 years old at the time. Robin, that you might have heard of. She had pretty big success in USA. Robin is here is really, really great one. A really soul funky, very 90s soul style, but with a touch of little Swedish here and there. We have Octopus, the album of Human League, that is sadly forgotten, containing some really great one. I like the song One Man in My Heart. It's a really, really cute song. And also this one, Tell Me Why, that I have on 7-inch. Definitely, Janne, I agree. More soul to soul. Soul to Soul with Jazzy B in 1995. That wasn't the hippest thing. So before I bought this one, I was a little bit hesitating, but I gave it a chance, and it was really, really, really great. Really smooth, funky, soul style.
Surprised they were still going.
Five
Yeah.
Believe by Soul to Soul. Steely Dan, a live album called Alive in America. Really, really great. We have Eric Gadd, also Swedish soul king. This is very great, smooth, silky song called "Why Don't You, Why Don't I?" And the interesting thing here is that in a Swedish newspaper they had soul legend Isaac Hayes sitting and judging. I think it was 5 Swedish songs, and it was one that he was specifically fond of, and it was this one. So the newspaper gave him the single. So it has been in an own from Isaac Hayes has owned the one example of this single, but it's really, really smooth. And finally, something that will bridge over to maybe the later years of the 90s that we will come to, Chemical Brothers and their Exit Planet Dust. Experimental and unpredictable and really, really groovy. Big Beat is coming.
There was for a while I had some Chemical Brothers on my want list, and I can't remember which one it was because I was beginning to find that some of their really strong stuff from the 90s didn't age well, in my opinion. But I got to see what it is on my list.
A lot of breakbeat dates very quickly.
Yeah.
But They have a few good songs. I still like Block Rock and Beats, and I love their videos, by the way. Their videos
I
are fun.
guess you're not surprised if I say that I don't agree with that.
Well, I mean,
think it
Jorgen, there's a
rocks
whole thing
great.
about there's a whole thing too about like sometimes things are cheesy when they came out. It's not just the aging process that makes cheese, but yeah, I mean, Chemical Brothers. I saw them, by the way, in a rave, but I don't remember a single thing of that rave. But apparently they performed, and I like their earliest stuff. Was actually they used to be called Dust Brothers. Was their first name, but they had to change that because there was a production group that produced Beastie Boys called the Dust Brothers from L.A.
And you will see a whole lot more Chemical Brothers as the years go
As
by.
we go
in the
by,
90s.
yeah, right. Their
Because
first
I-
single actually was '94 as the Dust Brothers. That I have that one on single on vinyl.
That's right, Johnny. I'm good. I'm really like to make people say what.
All right. Well, then that wraps us up. So thank you guys for joining, and everyone else in the audience for the Sunday brunch bunch. Not bad for what I think we were thinking was going to be kind of a lean year. We'll see what 1996, will be like. Although I tried looking this up here. Because next Sunday is the 30th.
Halloween. Oh, yeah.
So I don't know. I might switch up the theme for next Sunday and, spooky music, eerie music, Halloween music, something like that. That we talked a little bit about that in our
I'm not
recent.
sure that I have so much of that.
Yeah, we'll be talking about that in our next Gunkles show that will be coming out in a week, and talking about Halloween music a little bit. So
Yeah, I've already taped it, but I have a Halloween video that I'm dropping on Halloween Day on my
Yeah.
channel.
Nice.
so who knows? We'll just stay tuned to see what happens. So thank you all again, Jason, Jorgen, and Chris, and everyone else. And always remember to pray for the people inside your head, for they won't be there when you're dead.